Well, howdy, howdy, y'all. Today is the review of the Ontario Rat2 in D2. So first things first, you know the drill. We're going to go over some specs, kick the tires, test it out, final thoughts and impressions. So with the Rat2, you're getting a 3-inch blade of D2 on this particular version. There is an AUS 8 version, but I mean D2, come on guys. Satin finish on this. You've got a handle length of 4 inches, so an overall of 7. You have a liner lock with steel liners. Your handle is going to be this nylon type handle, these GFRN or FRN, you know, that style handle. You've got a fully reversible pocket clip. Any way you want to carry it, you can carry this tip up, tip down, right hand, left hand, you know, any way you want. So specs weight on this is 2.75 ounces, so a fairly light knife. You are riding on phosphor bronze washers. All right, those are your basic specs. So let's kick the tires a little bit. So kicking the tires a little bit, let's talk about this knife right out of the box. First things first, things I look for are blade centering, blade play, and sharpness. So blade centering was pretty good, not perfect. It favors this side just a hair. I haven't adjusted the pivot yet. I usually save that for later at the end. But sharpness out of the box. Now, there's a little asterisk when I say this. This was the dullest of the 4 knives, but the other ones were really sharp, and this one still went through paper just fine. It just needed a little bit of edge touch up, and it's fine right where it's at now. It's not bad. I don't want you guys thinking this was like butter knife. This was still sharp out of the box. Just a side note, it was the least sharp of the 4. I guess I shouldn't say dull, I'll say least sharp. Your blade play, your lockup is really good. There's no blade play up and down. This actually might be one of the most solid out of the box without any little wiggle in any direction. So that's nice. Your lockup on the blade is pretty good. So let's talk about some of the features of this knife. You have this pocket clip, which can go tip up, tip down, left or right, which is always a nice feature. Lets you carry it however you want to carry it. In hand, it fits really good. However, if you have a large hand, you may not like this knife for the fact that I have a small hand and it fits pretty nice in my hand right now. I like the thumb ramp. It's got just enough jimping, nothing super aggressive. Just pretty good right there. I like that. I love this finger choil that sits in there really good, and somehow they did a nice job with this liner. A lot of times when you get this liner lock in the little finger spot here, there's usually a little bit of a hot spot that gets gathered in here between all of this stuff going on. But the Rat2 did it right, and there's no issues. There's no sharp edge right there that bothers me, at least in my hand. So yeah, overall good. Pocket clip on this one is pretty good. It has the most grab with the least amount of snag factor out of them. So you get probably the best secure in pocket out of this with the least amount of snag factor. I don't know if that makes sense, if there's like a ratio of how tight it holds in the pocket to the least amount of snag when it's going in. So focus back in there for you guys. All right, so it's not the smoothest going into the pocket, but it's not bad. So maybe roll that clip in here. All right guys, let's talk about action for a second. This knife is done right. It's snappy and just fun to deploy. So it's only via thumb stud, but look at that, perfect. It kind of reminds me of another knife that is done extremely well. Let me pull that guy in frame for a second. This is one of the best actions, non-assisted, liner lock, just detent and washer knife. No bearings, no assist, nothing, and it's done right. So the Kershaw injection is one of my favorite budget buys that I've done, and the thing about it that probably still to me that makes me the happiest is the action. And it's done so well. They've got it dialed in really good. So this has great action for the way it's constructed. Oh, all right, well, user error, of course. Anytime you try to say something nice about the knife, it's gonna make you lie out of you, just like your kids. So what else about this knife do I want to go over? Let's go over the handle a little bit real quick. I had quite a few people in the comment section. I mentioned something about how the carbon fiber looks nice, and they all said don't do the carbon fiber. Their carbon fiber is really slippery. And I'm glad I didn't, because this nylon material here is actually a little slippery as well. Not terrible, but here's something that happens. If it's a smaller knife, if you got I got smaller hands, when you go to see what's happening there, it's kind of sliding out when I go to do the thumb stud. Now, once I made myself aware of that, it's not an issue. I just give it a little bit of extra purchase. But it's a little slippery. It's not the slipperiest, it's not the grippiest, it's just something to keep in mind. But the trade-off is, the reason it's so slippery is because it's just done really well around the edges, guys. This is rounded very nice. There's no protrusions on the liners. Everything just is really tight packaged. So just a side note, it is a little slippery in hand, not as much as some of the other knives, but just something I wanted to make you guys aware of. So fit and finish out of the box was great. There's no issues with this knife whatsoever, besides the little things that I mentioned. So let's do some testing, guys. So with this guy, I already did the testing with the rope and the lawnmower belt. If you want, you guys can go check out my video with the D2 steel test. I'll put a link to that right here, that little card that pops up. If you guys want to see me steel testing this, I mean, it's D2, does a pretty good job. So what I do want to do is the pool cue, the wax. Now this is a liner lock, so I'm not exactly sure if the results will fall in line with the lockbacks, but let's test it out and see what happens. All right, so pre-test, there was absolutely no blade play. Let's check it out. So yeah, that actually had the best result for the pull cue test. I didn't really get any blade play, left or right or up and down. So yeah, that liner lock's dialed in pretty good, guys. I want to do a little bit of a shorter video on this one so I could do the final thoughts and impressions. So let's get to that, guys. All right, so final thoughts and impression on this knife. You know, I want to get it out of the way right now. If it seemed like I was being kind of down on this knife, I hope it wasn't, because I'm not. I'm actually high on this knife. If I could wrap up my impressions and thoughts on this knife with kind of one phrase, it would be like Goldilocks zone. This knife is just right in a lot of the areas, you know. If it's too small for your hands, there's a way to fix that. You get a Rat1. They offer pretty much the same thing. Rat1 is just a bigger version of this. So with my hands being smaller, I wanted a Rat2, and I'm happy I got it. You know, the action is done extremely well. For a knife that uses just detent, washers, and a liner lock, no flippers, ball bearings, none of that fancy stuff, this is the way it should be. This is dialed in extremely well. I used my Kershaw injection for the same as a demonstration earlier, and that one's done really well too. So this is what I would expect from knife manufacturers, something like this. Nice and reliable every time. It's just snappy and it's reliable. So you know, I did bring out the fact that it's a little smooth, but you know, it's not, it's just the edges are rounded and it's done nice. So I'm willing to have that trade-off. You know, the pocket clip is functionable, and it's not bad. You know, there's not a huge snag factor. And I guess there's actually really, I would say, no snag factor. I just got kind of spoiled by the Dozer pocket clip. That thing is just top notch. So, a little unfair on this guy, but on all the areas, this knife is right. You know, fit and finish, the blade play, I'm actually really impressed for a liner lock. It took the the whack test the best out of all of them. The steel is great. The materials are good for the price. This is kind of the standard, I would say, in that price range. And it's funny, I'm going to put a screenshot up on a comment that I got when I did my steel wheel intrigue thing. It kind of came in a little bit later. So guy asked me, well, what do you expect for a $45 knife? Do you expect to find a perfect knife? And you know, my short answer is yes, I do expect to find a perfect knife under $45. And a couple of the knives that I've done in this or that series kind of show that. So I'll maybe do a separate video on that. But this would be an example of something that I could say, you know, this rolls in at the same price of the steel wheel intrigue, and I would take this knife all day, every day over that knife. Like I said, you know, and I'm sorry that, you know, I know some people really like that knife, but just my experience with it, it was just a hard pass. But this, This is a yes. So guys, absolutely could recommend this knife. It's a great knife, great price, great package. Like I said, it's just right in all the areas. You know, it's like the knife of knives. Like in that price range, this is like the standard. So Rat2, absolutely. D2. This is the last knife in the this or that series, guys. So you know what that means. Stay tuned. We are going to have a video coming out really soon that you guys might want to participate in. So have a good one, guys. Rat2, D2, absolutely. Thank you to the recommendations in the comments to get this knife. Barry Levitt specifically, and a few of the other guys. So have a good one, guys. We'll see you really soon. Have a good one. Bye.